This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Now tuned into the greatest.
So when that bag come, I won't fumble. I'm just stacking on the low, but hey, I'm tired of being humble. Let me get to it. That motivation music. Get control of your life, don't let nobody else do it. Cause so we're not gonna have match Ep.503 cruising. Feel like you winning on the...
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Row with me, Manny Wilson. All the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. I appreciate you tuning in to the first interactive sports podcast. You know, a community that makes sure your voice is heard. So if you hear something you agree with, you disagree with, you like or you dislike, or even if you just want to outsmart me on something I said, shoot us a quick take on our voicemail line, 219-413-9405. And of course, we'll play your take back on our next episode. And then shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this episode. Get $20 off your first ticket purchase when you use the promo code TheRunPodcast. Now, this code can only be applied for first-time users on the mobile app or website. So I don't know about you, but MLB season is heating up. The playoffs is about to start. And then, as you know, the NFL season is here. So you better get your tickets to go to one of these games. Now, speaking of great games, my Atlanta Falcons, man, we got a dub. Finally, we defeated the Minnesota Vikings. Falcons beat the Vikings 22-6 in Minnesota. And before I touch on too much for it, I just want to go ahead and let head coach Raheem Morris share his thoughts in the post-game interview about what he seen and witnessed in this game here. So here's head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, Raheem Morris, after the win.
That was a lot more fun, getting the win. Obviously we came out and really challenged the O-line last week. They responded in a big way. Coming out, being able to run the football, being able to establish the run. The offense went out, did that thing, took over field, possession, time possession, and then the defense stepping up every single time, getting huge stops, major stops in critical situations. And on special teams, those guys really stepped up. Seeing those kicks over the uprights, watching those guys cover was absolutely outstanding. So I was proud of those guys.
Defense was the star of the show. And I'm going to be honest about this game here with the Falcons. Yeah, the score looks a little lopsided, 22-6. It sounds like it might have been a beat down, but truth be told, it was kind of a snooze fest. I'll be honest, man, it was a snooze fest. Neither offense could really get rolling throughout the game. It was a very defensive game all throughout the game. It was a lot of field goals, things like that. But ultimately, the Falcons scored a touchdown late in the game that made the score look a lot further than what it actually was. The game was way closer than what the score reflects. But anyway, man, the defense stole the show here. I was very proud of the defense. I was very, very excited watching the rookies show up big on this defense and the way the defense stood tall all together, man, because, man, I tell you, I'm going to just throw a couple stats your way to kind of prove of what this defense did all together. But aside from me telling you the rookies showed up big, the vets on the defense stood tall as well, and they were very commanding on the defensive front and just sending in great blitz packages and all of these different things. But the thing that really made me most proud of this Atlanta Falcons team defensively is the fact that the Falcons generated pressure on 53% of the dropbacks from J.J. McCarthy. This is the highest rate in pressure in over 5 years with the Atlanta Falcons, man. This is unheard of. I personally it's been a long time. I think it was 2018, the last time they've generated this much pressure on any quarterback in the NFL. The Falcons defense also had 6 different pass rushers that had 3 or more pressures in the game. Ultimately, this led to 6 sacks defensively, 2 interceptions, both coming from the rookies, Billy Bowman Jr. and Xavier Watts. And then we have 4 turnovers that we forced on the Minnesota Vikings. And ultimately, as you know, we only allowed 6 points. So this was a flawless game for the Atlanta Falcons defensively, man. I loved every second of what I seen defensively. There was a lot from Jeff Albrecht. I want to give him his credit as well, with him adjusting from zone to man coverage, especially after our corner went down. That was a big toe. So, you know, obviously we got to worry about guys like Justin Jefferson over there. So to me, it was huge to see the adjustment of pressure, still getting pressure, still sending blitz, but just not being greedy with it. That was extremely important to me. So I loved every bit of this from the defensive standpoint. And ultimately, I got to give a lot of credit from the special teams as well, because we generated pretty much all of our points from special teams. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that Raheem Morris had that faith in our new kicker, Parker Romo, which is amazing. He was 5 for 5 out there, hit a 54-yard field goal. He was great, man. We finally got a new kicker in Atlanta, thank God. But what's even better is the fact that head coach Raheem Morris trusted our special teams and trusted the kicker, man. He didn't get greedy in all of those red zone options or opportunities that we had. He stayed focused. He stayed, level-headed, and he just took the field goal when we were struggling in the red zone. And this ultimately helped us, because if we'd have been trying to go for it, fourth down, going for it, and then not getting these conversions, then we're looking at a lopsided score, or maybe we're just continuing to give the Vikings more opportunities and more momentum to build off. So I was very, very intrigued by this defense. That was the first thing. And man, this type of momentum that the defense had for the Falcons, if they keep this momentum, they can be a very, very scary team, and they'll win a lot of ball games if they continue to keep this type of momentum defensively. So I was very proud there. However, I kind of want to shed light on the good before I go to the bad, but offensively, they struggled like crazy. And it was a big time adjustment for the Falcons offensively. Now, some of the good things in the offense that I noticed with the Falcons was the fact that obviously Bijan Robinson had a huge day rushing, almost 200 yards. The offensive line did make something happen for him, and Tyler Algier had some good rushing yards as well, had a couple good runs out there. But ultimately, we just didn't really have a good flow on the offensive standpoint. And, despite whatever the score reflects or however many yards Bijan Robinson had, the thing that bothers me most with this Falcons offense was the play calling, man. I did not like the play calling. It was not good. We got out of pistol finally and went to the spread in different formations. I seen we tried some trickery there. We had a direct snap to Bijan Robinson, which was cool, but ultimately we got to get so much more creative, because with the talent that this team has on the offensive side of the ball, I just don't understand how you can stall out time after time, drive after drive with this much talent on the roster for the offensive end of the ball. It just doesn't make sense to me. And, one of the things here is with Zach Robinson, okay, yes, I understand, I want to have that sympathy towards Zach Robinson. Yes, I really, really do. I want to have the sympathy toward him of, okay, well, Zach Robinson, he's still new. He's still a new offensive coordinator. But truth be told, bro, all of my sympathy for the offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, is out of the window. I'm done feeling sorry for him not being able to get this offense rolling. There's way too much talent on here. He's had way too much time. Last year, you had the excuse. It was your first time being an offensive coordinator. You had to adjust. You had to get used to the personnel, all of that. But this is year 2. You had all of last year to get well acclimated to your quarterback and the personnel you have on the offense. And now you had all summer and training camp and all of that to come out shooting lights out with this offense. But yet you still can't do it. Hell, you can't even get the correct play calls in. And to me, it was bothering me, aside from the play call that Zach Robinson had with the Falcons, the fact that you were putting Michael Penix Jr. in such a bad situation, giving him play calls when it was 15 seconds left on the clock. What are we doing? How do you expect a guy like Michael Penix Jr. to read? How do you expect any quarterback, not just Michael Penix Jr., how do you expect any quarterback to read a defense that's shifting, that's constantly giving you stunts like the Vikings defense does, and you're giving the play call with him giving him no time to read the defense? That's annoying, man. And that's an error for Zach Robinson. That's another one where it's not necessarily the play call is bad, but it's also like, come on, man, what are we doing? You got to get the play call out way quicker. You got to give Michael Penix some time to be able to read the defense and understand what type of blitz may be coming at him. What type of front are they throwing in the secondary? What type of front are they throwing up front? Like, it's just different things that go into giving the play call late. Like, you don't get a chance to really dwell on any of that. And I thought Michael Penix did a pretty decent job at that, but also the elements he couldn't control, which is obviously getting the play call, just really took a toll. And I wasn't okay with that, man. That part was very sloppy. It was messy. And I thought that was something that was ultimately going to cause us the game with getting these play calls out very slow and not giving Penix any time to be able to read the defense. That I was not happy with that at all. Despite how great the running game was, not happy with that at all. And I will say this. Yes, we had a successful night running the ball, which was cool. And if that's going to be our identity of running the ball and being, straight, heavily reliant on Bijan Robinson and Algier, that's cool. But ultimately, we still need to be able to make plays down the field, and we still need to be able to get the ball in our receivers' hands, especially since they were out last week. We got Drake London and we got Darnell Mooney back this week. Drake London almost had to sit out, but yet we had these weapons and didn't do anything for it. And I'm all for, adjusting to the defense and being able to, do whatever is going to get us the win. So I'm cool with that. But I'm just saying we still need to be able to have some sort of explosive plays down the stretch. We need to be a dynamic offense where we're not one-dimensional. And that's the last thing I want, is for this offense to be so reliant on the run game where we can't even get an air attack going. So that's really my biggest concern with Zach Robinson, is getting these play calls out and just polishing off this offense, man, because it was rough. And this game here, the defense won us this ball game against the Minnesota Vikings, without a doubt. Like, it was rough. So obviously Vikings had some struggles of their own. They had a couple different things that they had to work through within themselves. JJ McCarthy, he looked rough out there, gave up a lot of sacks, threw a couple interceptions. It was a rough game. But hey, man, he's still a young quarterback. I think we've seen what he can do in week 1 against the Bears. So ultimately, as things play out, I don't want to get too high on this win. I don't want to get too low on some of the things that didn't go well. But I tell you what, man, if this Falcons defense continues to play the way they did, and with this same sort of consistency and this pass rush getting to these quarterbacks, the Falcons going to win a lot of ball games. That's all I can say, man. And I'm just so happy we finally got a kicker. Thank God we got a kicker, man. Whoa, that's crazy. So anyway, look, man, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to jump into some news, which we will review the scores of week 1 and kind of give you a breakdown of everything that's happening soon. And we got the Chicago Bears coming up too, man, because got to hear a couple different things of what was said about the game. They got 50 hung up on them by the Detroit Lions, which it's pretty crazy. I ain't gonna lie. That 50 is a lot of points. But anyway, man, look, we'll take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. It's halftime.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
All right, let's get into it, man. Welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson. We got some news for The Run. Leave us a quick take on a voicemail line if you want to be involved. 219. What's that number? 219-413-9405. And then we'll play it back next episode. Of course, now some news for The Run. I'm going to just go over some of the scores that happened week 2 in the NFL. And to kind of give you a breakdown of what's finishing up in week 2 of the NFL. We had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing the Houston Texans. As of right now, Buccaneers are leading that game 14-10. It's the third quarter. Chargers will play the Raiders later on tonight, so a doubleheader for Monday Night Football. Also, earlier on in week 2, we had the Green Bay Packers playing the Commanders. Packers, they beat down on the Commanders 27-18. And the Commanders, it's some issues and some talks about Jaden Daniels having some knee issues. So they might be looking at a backup quarterback. And I know that, hey, there is a quarterback out there. Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, by the way. I'm not saying they got to go get him, but I'm just saying, give us a couple draft picks and some great players, and we got you, Kirk Cousins. But Packers, they were very dominant. I'm going to just leave it at that. Now the Atlanta Falcons, they defeated the Minnesota Vikings, as I said, 22-6 points. The Falcons won that game. Then the Bengals and the Jaguars played. Bengals won that game 31-27. Now, one thing you need to know about this game is Joe Burrow did go down again. He had turf toe, and I tried to explain it earlier, and I couldn't really do a good job. If you play, you know what turf toe is. If you didn't, you just gotta look it up and see exactly what it is. But Jake Browning stepped in for Joe Burrow, and he ended up finishing off the game. I ain't gonna say it was beautiful or nothing like that. Had some interceptions, but ultimately he got a win. So good for the Bengals. Cowboys, they beat the Giants in overtime 40-37. That was a great game. Rams, they beat the Titans 33-19. Patriots, they beat the Miami Dolphins 33-27. 49ers beat the Saints. The Bills, they beat the Jets 30-10. Seahawks, they beat the Steelers 31-17. Ravens, they beat the Browns. A mollywop, they smacked the Browns. Colts, they beat the Broncos by 1 point. Colts won 29-28, which was a crazy game. Cardinals, they ended up beating the Panthers. Eagles, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs 20-17. 2 times straight. They beat the Chiefs, obviously, in the Super Bowl, and then they just beat the Chiefs in exhibition as well. And the last game here that everybody has to know about, the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. The Lions hung up 50 points on the Chicago Bears. To be exact, it was 52-21. And after the game, a lot of people was kind of wondering what would be said by the head coach of the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson, he responded to a question that was asked about, putting up 50 points on him. So they asked him if he thought Ben Johnson was trying to run up the score and all of that. And this was they asked him if Dan Campbell, head coach of the Lions, was trying to run up the score on Ben Johnson. And this is Ben Johnson's response to that question. Here it is.
Do you believe Dan Campbell ran it up on you on that 4th and 4 goal?
What's he supposed to do? It's 4th and goal. What do you want him to do? Yeah, he could have kicked the field goal. They don't kick field goals. They go for it there. So he was doing what he was supposed to do. That's what he does.
I love it, man. Now, I love it because that's brutally honest. And, I really think that if Ben Johnson was the one that was, in the lead a majority of the game and had the opportunity to run it up, I'm almost positive that Ben Johnson would have ran the score up just as much, if not worse. So with that being said, man, I'm looking at this game. Obviously, I'm very happy for the Lions that the Lions were able to turn it around, complete 360 from what we've seen on the offensive side of the ball compared to week 1. This offense looked fluid. This offense was free flowing. They had the big plays. You had the great catch from Tesla. You had a lot of big touchdowns. Jared Goff almost threw for 400 yards. He had 5 touchdowns. Both running backs had touchdowns. It was a touchdown fest for the Lions. And it was a party for the Detroit Lions. And then you transition to the Chicago Bears side of this. And, honestly, I'm beginning to think that it's not so much of an adjustment of, this Ben Johnson offense that he's installed with the Chicago Bears is so difficult. It's so complex where it's hard to adjust. And, they got to figure that out still and all of that. I understand that aspect of it. But for just a second here, I think we need to hold certain people accountable, man. I'm going to just say it like this, man. Caleb Williams, he's looking like he's not that guy. With Ben Johnson's offense, obviously we see the design of it is very, very great. A lot of guys are getting open. A lot of receivers are getting open. The run game sometimes works. The play calling is amazing still for the most part. But the thing that bothers me is regardless of the excuse that anybody has for Caleb Williams, whether you say it's the coaching, the play call, whatever it is, the O-line, I don't care. It's not, it's absolutely inexcusable that Caleb Williams throws the ball inaccurately to these open targets. I don't care who you have as the offensive coordinator. I don't care who you have calling plays or constructing these plays. It will never work if your quarterback is not getting the ball from point A to point B accurately. Or even if it's not accurately, just getting the ball to point A to point B. If you can't do that, then you're not going to have a high success rate as a quarterback or just as an offense. And to me, obviously, I can't be the only one that sees this. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I'm not the only one that sees this, how nervous Caleb Williams is in the pocket. To me, it seems like Caleb Williams is overcomplicating the offense that Ben Johnson has. Like, he's overlooking some of his progressions. He's overlooking some of these open targets and choosing to either escape the pocket, go make a throw on a run, which he can do, but it's not necessary when you already have option 1 and 2 and 3 about to be open. So you got to let the plays develop. And yes, the O-line isn't perfect all the time, but I'm really starting to think, man, that Caleb Williams is the one that's making this a little more complicated. And for everybody out there who's like throwing the excuses and continuing to give excuse after excuse for Caleb Williams, you got to remember, man, like just take what you see from the film and just look at it. Try and look at it from a non-biased perspective. I know Caleb Williams has a lot of upside and he has a lot of potential in the future, but you got to remember too, this isn't Ben Johnson's guy. Ben Johnson didn't handpick Caleb Williams. He didn't say, I want this guy out of the draft with all these other great quarterbacks. He didn't handpick Caleb Williams. So now that he is learning his style a little bit, and I still think there is a lot of obviously room to grow for this Bears offense and these two learning each other, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. But I don't think any of it will work if Caleb Williams can't get the ball from point A to point B accurately. Like, it's nothing Ben Johnson can do about that. And yes, huge potential. Again, Caleb Williams got it. He can make these throws on a run and stuff like that. But when you overcomplicate something that's supposed to be simple, it ends in disaster. That's like saying, all right, I'm trying to fix a salad, but yet you start going and overlooking everything that you need. You start overshooting. You're like, instead of getting the lettuce out, you just start putting all the dressing on the plate. You just start, trying to chop up the veggies and all of that, and you ain't even put the lettuce on the plate. It's like you just start to overanalyze and just overshoot every single thing, and that's what I've been seeing from the Chicago Bears as of now. So I know it's still early, and it's a lot of things that can change from week 2 to week 14 and all of that. I get that, but as of right now, in week 2, what I'm seeing from Caleb Williams is not on anyone else outside of Caleb Williams. Yes, I know sometimes the O-line fails and they don't give him enough time. But even when the O-line gives Caleb Williams time, he still fails to get the open target. The first progression and the second progression. And he chooses to run out the pocket or take a sack. And it's like, okay, you had the options, but for some reason, it's just not clicking. It's not clicking. And I know it's early. It can change. It will change. I'm sure it will. But just considering here, maybe Caleb Williams ain't that guy. That's all I'm considering. I'm just proposing an idea. I think it's time we at least question it, that maybe he's not that guy. That's it. That's all I'm saying, man. I ain't gonna harp on him. I want him to have a great, luxurious career with the Chicago Bears in the NFL. I want him to have a great career. But I'm just saying, maybe, just maybe, he's not that guy. Just maybe. That's it. Other than that, man, that's all I got for you guys. So I appreciate you for tuning in, kicking it, listening. And I'm going to leave you on a positive note. The positive note is just going to be to take care of yourself, man. Take care of yourself mentally, physically, whatever you got to do to make sure you feel okay mentally, physically, and spiritually. Just take care of yourself. So I'm going to leave it at that. Other than that, man, that's all I got for you. So I appreciate you for kicking it. Appreciate you for hanging with me. And then we'll be back later on this week, actually. Later on this week. And then so on and so on and so on.